Hey, this is Steve Moreland with another podcast from Success Publishing. And what we do here is finding new authors that are launching their book. And we want to interview them to find out about why did they write a book, what's their passion, and what is it exactly that they want to take as a message out to the world to make it a better place. Today with me, I'm going to let him introduce himself, Rys. I'm going to kind of let you show off your new book. I know you just got published. So give us a little insight on where you're from, brother, and, kind of a good, background on how you got here to becoming published.
Wow, what an amazing accomplishment, first and foremost. I remember getting, I ordered 50 books to have shown up at my door, and that thing came, and my son was there, my daughter was there, and we peeled that open. And even my family and my kids didn't know what we've been doing the last year in publishing this book. And so when I opened that box up and they saw it, they just thought, what the heck, Dad? Like, no way, you wrote a book. And my mind was blown and full of excitement. And I think the big reason I was so excited is I remember what Matt Morris said. He said, your words and your story are now going to be able to, you're going to share that with generations, hundreds and hundreds of years from now. People will read those words, and it's something I've never forgotten. And the reason I wrote a book was it's always been a passion of mine. My grandfather left a tremendous legacy, and I'm trying to fill those shoes and finding balance with understanding his legacy, but also carving my own legacy out. Right. And I just felt like it was time. It was time for my story to be heard. My story is very much like a lot of people that have allowed life to life on them. We found ourselves in situations that we don't even recognize how we got there. But that's the power of, do you shrink? Do you literally let life crush you? Or do you really dig deep and stand really firm and let your roots grow deep to where you become a really powerful voice in the world that's needed? I mean, the world needs powerful voices. They need vision, but they also don't need perfection. They need people to share their mess, which is their message. And there's a lot of commonality from that. And so that's the big reason for me, Steve, is writing this book and telling my story.
Absolutely. Well, do you have a copy of the book around there somewhere?
I do. Let me grab it. This is it, man. We're so excited.
Look at that, man. That's outstanding. Breakthrough success. And tell me about your connection to Matt Morris. How do you know Matt?
Man, this is a person that I've loved for a long, long time. We've never met in person, but I've seen him. I've seen him on the stages of the world. I've watched him. I've joined some of his stuff that he has with regards to coaching in the MLM space. And what I loved about Matt Morris was this, is that not only is he a coach in the network marketing space, he's also a distributor. Yeah. He's doing the grind every single day. And to be honest, I have a really coaches in our industry that are no longer or haven't ever built a downline, and they're up there telling me how to do that. And so I've always just transitioned and followed and defaulted to Matt Morris because one, he's lived a life. He still lives a life. He's still working his day-to-day grind with his distributors. He's still, in self-production. And that's a leader that I want to follow and emulate, even though we're in different companies. But that is the beauty of Matt Morris. I love his ripple. I love his voice. I love his action. I love his core values. And why wouldn't you follow that? I mean, we have a tough time finding certain people in our own company and that are emulating that process. And so I've stepped up and joined his goals in being a mentor of the mentors. That's what I'm working on. And I've lived my life, Stephen, by one quote, and why I've been successful in network marketing is fellowship precedes leadership. And I'm always trying to learn. I'm not better than anyone, even though I've been at this thing almost 20 years, man, there's so much for me to learn, and you can learn a ton from Matt Morris.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you becoming the lead author in the book, I mean, it's awesome. It looks fantastic. And, I know that there's a big impact that your grandfather, like you mentioned just a second ago, and he tells a story about an oak tree and an acorn and how it makes an impact. So kind of, I'm reading your press release. I know you've been out there on NBC and CBS and Fox and some major media and stuff like that. But, because your grandfather gave it to you, I don't want to re-say, I want you to tell us, how did it impact your life? Because like you said, you're coming up in a great man, and you are going to become a great man. And he gave you some insights. Tell us what that is.
Man, he left me two pearls of wisdom that I've never forgotten. One was wrap your distributors, RAP, respect, appreciate, and praise. And if
Okay.
you could do that, if you could breathe that life into your distributors, well, as a young boy, I never understood what that meant.
Sure.
I just realized that my grandfather was very wealthy. He sold a network marketing company in the late 70s
Wow.
for, six-figure, 100 million plus dollars. And so we just grew up with a very wealthy grandfather. Well, it wasn't until I started getting older and started to understand that life's on me. And my grandfather was getting older. He passed away at 98, almost 99 years old. And he started back in he started 1957,
Wow.
before Amway, right when Shackley, he started with the DSA. And
Okay.
his only thing that he wanted to create was a company that allowed the everyday person to own their own life, to find freedom through going and building their own business. And that's when he started Neil Life. And it's still ranked in the top 100 today. It's a very amazing story. They do
Wow.
$300+ million in sales. And here's what's interesting, Steve, is I actually took his lifetime sales the other day. He's done almost $9 billion in sales from when he said yes to himself in providing an opportunity. So when I started to understand that in my early 20s, well,
Right.
he started a beef jerky company, or a cattle ranch. We took that and turned it into beef jerky. Well, I found myself with venture capitalists taking our business away. And I was 27 years old, two babies that were already here, $500,000 home being built, my third daughter on the way, and my financial spigot was turned off. Literally high school education. And I thought, what the heck am I going to do with my life? How am I going to provide for these kids? Well, on the way home in Salt Lake City, Utah, 9 out of 10 calls are network marketing. Well,
Okay.
I took this phone call from a friend. He says, come to my basement. I've got an opportunity. I said, heck yeah, I'll be there. Because I didn't want to face my former wife at the time. I had no answers. I didn't know what I was going to do. And
Sure.
so I remember listening to this gentleman, and that was my first introduction to network marketing and being a distributor.
Okay.
And that's what sent me on my road. And I called my grandfather and I said, Gramps, I'm in network marketing. And he was so proud. I remember him almost in tears, just saying, one of my grandkids, at least one person, has followed my footsteps.
Right.
And then he gave me this wisdom. He said, son, let me tell you this one thing, and you cannot forget this. Above and beyond the wrap, your distributors and so forth, he says, from one acorn, 1,000 forests are born.
Whoa.
And that's all he left at. He left it at that. He didn't go into details. He didn't explain it. And it wasn't until I was on the pier in Edmonds, Washington, just north of Seattle, literally crabbing illegally to feed my two children, not understanding how I even got to where I am. I had 5 children, 2, horrible relationships, trying to feed my family in a custody battle. And I just thought I had $25 to my name. And I'm like, what is going on in my life? And this is after I've had tremendous success already.
Sure.
And then lost it and defaulted.
Yeah.
And this thing just kept screaming through my brain. And it wasn't until I was on the pier watching my son and my daughter, hoping that the game warden wouldn't come and arrest me, take my borrowed car. And I thought, from one acorn, 1,000 forests are born. It just kept ringing in my brain. And it finally dawned on me that boom, here I have the ability to create thousands of very amazing forests around the world. And I look back on my career, 18 years, 42 countries, almost $1 billion in sales in my lifetime career. And I love this industry. I love the person I've become, because this industry forces you to be the best version of yourself. Yeah. And if you aren't self-developing, you aren't growing, you aren't standing the test of time, you aren't facing these storms and growing and digging, pushing those roots deeper and deeper into your life to where you can stand those heavy things. And man, we've made it through. We're back to square. I have no debt. I have all of my child custody and stuff figured out. I have everything, back to square zero with every single thing in my life that really should have crushed me. And I should have just thrown in the towel and said, I can't do this. Like, what's the point? And I'll be honest, The only way I was able to do that was because I chose network marketing. Because if I'd done the traditional route, trading time for dollars, there's no way I could have ever climbed out of that hole that I put myself in. But another key thing, Steve, I talk it, radical accountability, self accountability. And if you can't get to that place in your life, you will struggle every step of the way.
Right. Outstanding. Wow. I mean, and sometimes those pearls, like you say, it takes some time for, it's like the seed when it's planted, it doesn't immediately blossom. It doesn't immediately grow tomatoes or grow a tree or whatever. It actually has to sit there, work its way down on the ground, and then it actually roots first. So it grows down first. And that was what was happening in you because your grandfather gave you something that sounded like Martian to you. The language, you were like, thousand forest, what the heck, what's grandpa talking about? And then it was that aha that your mind had been sitting there working on it. That was the rooting process that was going down first. Because
exactly.
As you speak about this, I can hear your passion. I can hear your sincerity and your intensity and, your care for other people and how it's changed your life. This is not something that's a script for you. This is not something that is, what do you want to say? I hear so many people that when they do an interview, it's like they're reading cards, and what this is coming straight out of your soul because you're like, hey, this is what Gramps taught me. And then all of a sudden I got the aha. And now and now you have said here, would you say $1 billion+ in sales?
We're just pushing about 800 million and growing. And man, I'll be in this industry forever. I will take my last breath doing network marketing. And, like Matt Morris says, this all of a sudden transitions from, you're no longer doing it to pay for your family. You've made it through those, trials and tribulations, and how you figured out the sophisticated basics. I call them the eternal truths of network marketing that just become muscle memory. And like Matt Morris and myself, you could drop us in any country without us even knowing the language, and we'll give us 1 year and we'll have an army following us. And so once you realize that, your mind transitions to, all right, servant leader. Instead of onesies and twosies coming to the top of the mountain, let's go get the masses. Let's start participating with the lower ranks of each company and breathe life into them, because I would rather create more hundredaires and thousandaires than just focus on the millionaire.
Sure.
Because if we can create more hundredaires and thousandaires, the millionaires happen in our industry.
Sure. Yeah.
But man, leadership is needed. People need to stand in their power and own their voice. I just see too many people shrinking to the point where they will not share their voice.
Wow.
And it's such a tragedy.
Yeah.
And you've seen it before. We sit in these groups and all of a sudden the person that's never said anything finally has the courage to say, I want to share something. Right. And it rocks the whole room. Right. And that's my goal, is to just leave this industry better than when I found it. And my grandfather, still to this day, the benefit of him saying yes to himself, yes to his goals, yes to his own dreams, has changed hundreds of thousands of families across the world. Sure. Me saying yes has changed hundreds of thousands of distributors in 42 countries. Matt Morris saying yes to himself, even though we didn't know what the heck we were doing when we first started, has changed millions of people's lives. Like, show me a better way.
Yeah, and that's what's really cool. I remember one day Matt was just coming out of the Marine Corps and he responded to a marketing ad that I'd put out. And then he joined my team and all of a sudden he was in network marketing. And look at the number of people's lives he's been able to affect and impact. And he and I are still hanging out here 23 years later with the focus of, finding other exceptional servant leaders like yourself and saying, hey, how can we hang out together? And you've become a published author now with Matt. And what that's designed to do is to take this message that you just delivered and be able to do that at scale, in a broader way, because that's the whole thing is like you said, trading time for money. You can only do, onesies, twosies all the time. And you're out of daylight, you're out of time, And so how do we are able to share this idea? Because there's a lot of people out there, especially in the last year, looking for, hey, things aren't like they used to be. Things just got different. And guess what? They're going to stay different. So if I go back to thinking like I used to versus thinking like a direction that I've not tried before, but opening my mind to possibility. Whoa, who knows where the future is, you know? And I think
Yeah.
I mean, you're articulate, man. I just love to hear your passion. And I think it's awesome that you become, you know, a published author, and man,
Yes.
congratulations again.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's interesting, like just being able to say those words, published author.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it would hit me the way that it did when I first saw that book. I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen it on the progression of what the system of success publishing has done,
Sure.
and really allowing me. I'll be honest, Steve. There's no way on God's green earth I would have ever written a book had it not been for success publishing,
Yeah.
and how just step by step by step, just that encouragement, that little bit, like, hey, I could take this small step.
Yeah.
You know, it became daunting when you're like, hey, go write a book.
Yes.
And people have no clue where to even start. They don't know who to call. They don't know what to do. Then
Yeah.
they look at the amount of money that would normally cost. I got into this thing after you and I spoke and thought, I can do this. And then all of a sudden I see the layout of, hey, just take step one. And when you're done, click the OK button and we'll take step two.
Yep.
And the thing, and it's no different in network marketing, right? We say, hey, take step one.
Mhm.
And as soon as you do that, we'll take step two.
Yeah.
But what I love most about this, Steve, is that you allowed each published author to compress that time into whatever they wanted. I could have done it in 3 months. I
Yeah.
could have done it in 6. It took me 1 year.
Yeah.
And I know there's other published authors that went through that faster. That's fantastic.
Correct.
But at least I knew that I could pick up the pieces after maybe it sitting on the shelf for 5 weeks, and I knew exactly where I was, how to get to that next step. And here we are at the end of the road with a published author of success. And even having Matt Morris on the cover, he's been one of my mentors, and he has no clue at all that he's been my mentor. And here it is, one of the legends in the industry on the front cover in a book that was my first rodeo. And I'm telling you, the other successful authors that are part of the book, I've been reading those. And I mean, you talk about powerful people. This is incredible.
Yeah, I think you said before something about life happens or something like that, or life happens to you.
Yeah. I always say life is lifing. So whenever anyone's like complaining about debt, or I'm having a trouble with my fiance or my marriage, or how to, overcome finances, or slander or defamation. I mean, there's so much that goes on in this industry. Ego's driving it a lot of the time. And man, when life is lifing, it can become very suffocating for people.
Sure. Well, that's actually what happened to you in the middle, because, our publishing process can happen as fast as 90 days. But in your case, there were other things with life. So we were able to roll with you and say, okay, when you can set aside the time. Imagine, when you were able to put together your chapter that became the anchor for the book. Imagine trying to write, an entire book and lifing on you. That's what happens with so many people. And then all of a sudden they're 75 or 80 years old going, I never wrote my book and I want to leave something behind. I want a legacy. And you've already opened that box with your kids, and they looked at that. And I think it's cool because you surprised if you didn't tell them it was coming. But think about how you just reset their mind. And now, wow, look what Dad has done. Now, what is it that I can do? And that's, I'm a father like you. We always want to set that standard, and we strive because we know that our kids are looking at us going, well, if Dad can do it, I can do a little bit.
Right.
And wow, what a legacy you just.
It was so funny. It was so fun, Steve. Like literally I opened up the book and I said, hey son, my son's almost 11. I said, hey, go ahead and read the first paragraph. Well, there he is. It's his name. I'm with my son, Jagger, who is currently 6, and my beautiful daughter, Lake, who's 4, crabbing on the Edmonds Pier. And they remember that. And so his eyes lit up like a Christmas tree, and I started crying, and it's just a powerful thing. And what it allows, like Matt says, I just noticed my own posture changing as a leader. Like I have pretty tremendous posture already, but just knowing that we've taken this step and accomplished this goal and dream, everything in our life is based on layered momentum. Yes. And this was a massive momentum for me to see it published. It's now infused excitement into my group. It's infused excitement into my LB coaching platform that we do, that's subscription driven. It's a self-development program that we do. And man, it has lit a fire in a lot of people. And I've always said to people, you're either going to light on fire next to me or you're going to melt, and it's not my problem.
I love it. I love it,
Yeah.
man. Well, congratulations again, man. I'm just super excited just to see, and I love to see, man. Man, you're just beaming, man, and I can just see the energy popping off of you. And this is, like you said, when we take new authors in to be published, they all think it's about the book and about getting the quote published status, and then they become a bestseller, and then they are seen on a lot of different news and media networks, and they really don't understand that the whole process of this is also going to change how they see themselves. And that's what you're just testifying to. So it's pretty awesome, man. Congratulations again. And congratulations for sharing that moment, with your son and your wife and all that kind of stuff. How cool is that, man? Those are priceless.
Yeah, no, it was yeah, it was incredible. And I just want to tell everyone, like if you've ever sat on the fence and you've wanted to write a book or you wanted to be a published author, I would 1000% tell you, you run towards Success Publishing.
Wow.
The team was on point. Bryson was incredible. Matt Morris's, information, everything's laid out for you to take that step. And really what it's done for me, Steve, is now I'm really eager to write a whole book, not just like my chapter and facilitate and so forth, but literally go out and write that book, a lot like what Matt Morris has done with his books. And we're going to change the world. That's why I was born. That's what I was meant to do, and challenge the leaders, be a leader of leaders, be a mentor of mentors, and challenge people to no longer accept living in their comfort zone, and get out there and face the storms, face the grueling sun, and with no water, and force yourself to blossom in that situation, because you can then stand there with your children and your grandchildren and breathe life into them when life's lifing on them, so they can go out and ripple the same way you have. And at the end of the day, when we take our last breath, we can know that we did everything we possibly could to stand in our greatness and become the best versions of ourselves. So thank you guys so much for allowing me to participate in this program. And we're going to keep going, buddy.
Well, and what you just talked about is building those 1,000 forests, and you're the man for it. Awesome, man.
Amen. Yeah.
I appreciate you taking time. I know you're busy where you're at, and I'm glad we were able to get this out so that you could share this with other individuals. I'm excited about what's going on from here, and man, all the success to you.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. Tell Matt hi for me.
I will. Take care, man.
All right. Cheers.